Hello Raptors fans, and welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we'll be discussing the Toronto Raptors game against the Charlotte Hornets. But before we do that, I want to talk about one guy who has been one of the best players on the team, and in my opinion, one of the biggest surprises this season, and a guy that I really did not foresee having as big of an impact as he has had. I think he's come second when I do the player evaluations more times than anybody on the list. He has just been so solid for the Toronto Raptors. And of course, I am talking about the man in the middle, the Toronto Raptors starting center, Jakob Poeltl. And I wanted to give a breakdown on his performance this season because he had another 20-point double-double in a Raptors victory. And he has been really one of the key ingredients to the Toronto Raptors winning games this season. So we're going to be discussing him quite a bit today. So why don't we start off with the statistics? Because he has put together a very good statistical season, both in terms of the traditional box score statistics and also in terms of the advanced statistics. We'll start off with the advanced statistics. And there's a website, it's a very good one. It requires a subscription, but it is one of the best all-in-one advanced statistic metrics that looks at plus minus. There is a thing, it's called EPM, estimated plus minus. There's a website called Dunks and Threes. They created it, and it takes a look at all of the different players in the association and rates them based on their estimated plus minus, so their impact on both ends of the floor through plus minus. And it basically tries to take away the influence that being on a bad team would have on a player who is otherwise good, which is very helpful when it comes to players like Jakob Poeltl, because right now the Toronto Raptors, even when he is on the floor, are bad enough that everybody on the team is negative. So this statistic tries to take away that influence of being on a losing basketball team and narrow it down so that you can see the impact that a player has. And in terms of EPM, Jakob Poeltl is in the 89th percentile, which is very good. He is one of the top players on the team, I believe the top player on the team. He is positive on both ends of the court, so on both offense and on defense, he is a positive player. And he's a 93rd percentile in rebounding. And that's among all players in the NBA. And so, painting a very good picture to start. In terms of the traditional statistical measurements, he is also very good. He's averaging just under 15 points, just under 10 rebounds and 3 assists in 30 minutes per game, with 1.2 steals and 1.2 blocks. Those are all very good marks to be hitting and coming close to. It just shows that he is a productive player when it comes to, the hard stats. He is shooting 63% from the field and a career high 67% from the free throw line. So that's very encouraging. He has improved his free throw percentage by over 12% compared to his career averages. And he is now just outside of, the sweet zone for a center. Centers, as you may know, are generally not very good shooters, especially at the free throw line. I mean, you just have to think about Shaquille O'Neal and what he was not able to do, which was his only weakness really was his shooting ability, especially at the free throw line. And Jakob Poeltl's no different. He has had struggles at the free throw line, but this season he has been a lot better in that regard. Josh Lewenberg, one of the beat reporters for the Toronto Raptors, noted that last night was Jakob Poeltl's 9th 20-point double-double, and prior to this season he had only 13 total. So this has been a career year for Jakob Poeltl in many different categories. And that is just another impressive notch in his belt for what he's been able to accomplish this year. He's number 2 on the Raptors in terms of player impact estimate, which is the NBA.com's kind of PER rating. It's like a box score stat where it just smushes everything together and rates you based on that. He's only behind Scotty Barnes in that category with 13.5. He's also number 1 on the Raptors in terms of Darko DPM. I know I'm throwing all around all these kind of ridiculous abbreviations, but he's number 1 on the Raptors in terms of Darko. It's a forward-looking metric, and he's number 1 in that stat on the Raptors. Another thing to note, this is kind of more granular. It's looking at one aspect of his game. So in terms of his shooting, it's very interesting because he's a very good finisher inside 3 feet and in. And so when you look at 63% from the field, you would say, well, that's not that good for a center. There are many centers who are shooting above 70% in the league. And the reason that they're able to do that is because the majority of their shots are layups and dunks. Jakob Poeltl is not a lot different in terms of the ability to finish on the inside. Like when he gets the ball right next to the basket, he's shooting 74% 3 feet and in, which is really what you would expect from a center. And that comprises about 50% of his field goal attempts. The other 50% come from floaters. He's actually taken more floaters this year than he has in the past. And it is such a deadly weapon for him. He's shooting 53% between 3 and 10 feet from the basket, and then 53% between 10 and 16 feet from the basket. So 16 feet and in, his floater is money. 34% of his field goal attempts come from between 3 and 10 feet, and 15% come between 10 and 16%. So he has a very good floater that he can use pretty much in all positions inside 16 feet. So that's a very impressive statistic. Now let's talk about sort of the qualitative elements of his game. We'll move it past the statistics and we'll simply talk about what I've been observing from him when I watch him on the court. So Poeltl is very important for the Raptors offense and their defense, and we'll start with the offense. He is one of the best pick and roll big men in the league, in my opinion, because he is very good at two of the elements, really the two most important elements when it comes to that play: screen setting and post scoring. So the touch on his floaters is very good. As I mentioned, 50% of his shots come from the floater. He has a very good touch on that shot. And the Raptors engineer plays that are simply designed to give Jakob Poeltl a floater in the paint, in and around the paint. That is what a lot of their plays boil down to. A lot of the time, he will just be lurking in that floater range around, that 10 feet from the basket, and the Raptors will find an angle to get it to him so that he can put it up and in. It's very useful in the pick and roll as well. He's kind of a master of angles. So there's screen angles are very important, as you may know. The ability to find the correct angle to give your ball handler as much space going to the basket as possible. He's able to spring and free ball handlers either through dribble handoffs or in the pick and roll, where he's just able to set a very solid screen at the correct angle and then roll to the rim. And that generally is a very useful thing to create separation and give good looks to his teammates. And also off of the ball as well, he's good at screening off of the ball too. And then in the pick and roll, one of his best attributes is the ability to find an angle where he's able to receive the ball in the pick and roll. So he will set the screen and then he will run into the paint at around that, 10-foot range, I would say, just inside 10 feet from the basket, and then angle himself so that the ball handler is able to easily get him the ball. And this is one of the best aspects of his game and why he is an effective offensive player. So he's a very big target. He has very good hands. He can catch the ball. He can catch difficult passes. And if he gets the ball in that area, he has, of course, the very nice floater that I mentioned, but he also has a very good pump fake, a floater pump fake that gets centers to bite on all the time. If he's hit multiple floaters or push shots, however you want to call them, in the paint, bigs are very, trigger happy. They want to get up and block that shot or at least challenge it. And he uses that very well to pump fake. And then he has a good first step for a big. His foot speed is good for a big. He's able to translate the pump fake into a quick drive to the basket where he can get it up and in. You've seen it. If you've watched any games this year, you've probably seen that floater pump fake, which he utilizes. It's a very quick movement, and the other big doesn't have to fully commit to trying to block it. They just have to kind of get a little bit off balance trying to come towards him, and then he can blow past them and lay it up and in. He has really a good first step for a big man. Now let's talk about kind of what he does. So we've talked a little bit about the pick and roll. Let's talk about what the Raptors like to do and how they like to use him when he is in the game. The Toronto Raptors use Jakob Poeltl as a passing hub at the top of the arc, and they will use him for dribble handoffs. A lot of the time, the Raptors will run multiple players around him, and then Jakob Poeltl will choose how he uses the ball. A lot of the time, he will pass it over the top to a cutter going to the basket. A lot of the time, he'll throw it to another player who maybe has an advantageous matchup in an isolation play or can take a man off of the bounce. A lot of the time, they'll use him in a dribble handoff, so have another player come up and use his screen through a dribble handoff. And basically this play allows the Toronto Raptors to utilize Jakob Poeltl's very good processing ability. He reads plays. He's not like the greatest passer, I will say. I don't think he's like a savant like Jokic, where he's just able to make like absurd godly passes. He's not that kind of guy, but what he does do is read the court very well, and he's able to make smart decisions with the ball. And the Raptors like to use him in that role, and they can flow into their plays very easily using him as the decision maker at the top of the arc. And then once the ball handler commits to the play, he'll run straight to that 10-foot range where he can either space the floor with his little push shot or run in for the offensive rebound. And this is an important thing to note, is that Jakob Poeltl's floater is a type of spacing, and I'll discuss that later because there's a player that I think he has a lot of synergy with that may not be apparent right off of the bat. I think there were a lot of people worried about how he would pair with this other player on the team, and I want to discuss that a little bit later. But before we do that, we're going to be talking about his defense, and Jakob Poeltl is very key to the Toronto Raptors defense. And he has a number of advantages. He doesn't have, he's not a complete player on the defensive end. He's missing a couple of attributes that you would expect from a center, but he makes up for it in his advantages. So we'll talk about both of those things. So the first tool in his tool belt is his foot speed. Jakob Poeltl has very good foot speed for a big man. He can stay in front of perimeter-oriented bigs and forwards when they are on the perimeter. This is something that is a problem for a lot of other big men, because a lot of the time, normal drop coverage bigs have slower foot speed. They're good at guarding around the basket, but they can't really guard on the perimeter. Not so with Jakob Poeltl. He can do that. He can even switch out onto some guards. Some of the time, against the creme de la creme, like the top NBA creators, he's going to struggle. But against, role player guards who maybe don't have the greatest first step or handle on the ball, he can stick with them and make it difficult for them. This makes him very difficult to abuse in the pick and roll, so he is a good pick and roll defender, because a lot of the time that is how you exploit a big who doesn't have good foot speed in the pick and roll, because they're not going to come up to the level of the screen and help out. They are going to be sitting in the paint, and a lot of the time you can generate a lot of mid-range shots that way. If you're the ball handler, the other big isn't going to be able to come out. Some of the time you can create step-back threes and that sort of thing, and exploit drop coverage. So a lot of teams are very good at doing this. He doesn't have that big problem. He can come to the level of the screen and provide help on drives, and then recover into the paint if stay attached to the other big to stop, lobs over the top. And then if need be, a lot of the time, sometimes it's required, like the screen it creates too much separation. The ball handler cannot stay with the guard that they're guarding, and he can switch. So as I've mentioned before, his foot speed is pretty decent on the perimeter, and sometimes it's not a great matchup, but a lot of the time in those types of coverages, that is better than giving up a three-point shot and, just an open three-point shot. That's a lot of the time you have to concede that shot if your big isn't willing to come out and challenge on the pick and roll. So he can do that, makes it a lot harder to exploit the Raptors in the pick and roll. Another good thing about him in terms of help defense, he's a little bit different than a lot of other help defenders in the NBA. So he's not a great rim protector in the traditional sense. So a lot of the time centers, what they will do is that they will lurk in the paint, and then if you try to come inside as a guard and make a layup, they will swat your shot. They'll jump up and they'll block your shot. He isn't a great vertical athlete. He's not jumping very high. He has nice long arms, but he is not a great vertical athlete. So he's somewhat limited in terms of his shot blocking ability around the rim. And once teams get inside the paint, he does drop most teams' field goal percentage inside that area. So we're getting back into the statistics a little bit, but the last time I checked, he had a slightly positive impact in terms of guarding the rim. When players shoot around the rim, he drops their field goal percentage by like a very slim amount. Which isn't amazing. Usually shot blockers and centers around the rim drop that significantly, like sometimes by 5, and then sometimes for the very top guys in that metric, like 10%. So he's not incredible in that aspect, but what he is very good at is stopping the penetration from getting inside into the paint. He is a good positional defender, and he will cut off the penetration to the rim. One of the most tried and true defensive strategies is the guard or the forward or whoever is guarding the penetration will try and guide the ball handler into the help defense. So that is one of the key elements of the Toronto Raptors defense, but instead of Jakob Poeltl standing in as a shot blocker, he will come out of the paint a little bit and move his feet to make the guard pick up their dribble. They can't get all the way to the rim. He's very good at that, and that is the defensive strategy that they have. He's good at executing that. The processing is a big element here. Jakob Poeltl is a smart player. He knows where to get to on the floor. And as I mentioned, the whole defensive strategy is limiting the amount of attempts that are attempted right at the basket. So that's kind of the strategy that they employ when he's on the floor, and he's good at executing that. Now let's talk about one of his greatest strengths as a player. And this is something that many bigs deliver, okay? This is something that you have big men in the game for. And of course, what I'm talking about is rebounding. Rebounding is so important. I would say that rebounding is the most underappreciated element of basketball. A lot of people talk about offense. A lot of people talk about defense. Not a lot of people talk about rebounding. And rebounding and turnovers, those are the ways that you create and preserve possessions. It is very important for a team to be able to control rebounding. It controls the amount of possessions that you give the other team. He is a very good defensive rebounder. So the first thing that he does is that he knows his role. His role is to, as the center of the team, is to box out and clear the paint. Essentially, what you are trying to do as the center on the team is that a lot of the time, it's not even all about the rebounding. So just literally grabbing the boards. A lot of the time, it's literally just preventing offensive rebounds. That is your goal. And it's kind of like defense in that you're kind of protecting the basket. You're stopping other, like interlopers, the other team, from sneaking in and grabbing offensive rebounds. He uses his big forearm. He's a strong player, and he is positionally aware of where the other offensive rebounder is, and he puts his body on them and clears them out and stops people from sneaking in and grabbing offensive rebounds. It's just so important. If you've ever watched the Raptors, the past few seasons before they got Jakob Poeltl, this was a constant problem. Other teams just getting in the paint, bullying the Raptors, pushing people away, grabbing offensive rebounds and creating a new possession. It was a nightmare before he got here. And now that he has been here and when he plays in the games, that has not been a problem. So big thing. He's also, last but not least in terms of defense, and this is probably the least important thing, but it is important, is defense against other bigs. Other big men, if you do not have a traditional big who is a big body, the other team's center, if they are physical in any way, will bully you. They will bully you. They will just push you out of the way and score on the inside. A lot of the time, they don't even have to have very good post moves. They just have to have a simple post move that abuses your lack of size. They'll put their shoulder into you and then do like a little hook shot or get a layup. And if they're deep sealed in the post, that's going to be an easy basket. A lot of the time, in the pick and roll, they will get it to their big. If he's guarded by a smaller guy, they'll just bulldoze them out of the way and score. Jakob Poeltl doesn't let that happen. I mean, he's not perfect. I mean, there's a lot of really talented post scorers these days. I mean, Jokic and, even Zubats and Jared Allen. But he is okay. He is pretty good, and he is a strong guy with a good base who can hold his ground, and it's not going to be too easy for other players to score against him in the post. So I think that he does a pretty good job there. Now let's talk about kind of his fit on the team and sort of in general, like a sort of team building perspective. So his fit with Scottie, I would say Scottie is the most important player on the team moving forward. He is the guy that the team has kind of been built around. And his fit with Scottie, especially when he was acquired, was debated because neither player is a good shooter. Okay, Scottie Barnes has kind of regressed in that aspect. Jakob Poeltl has never been a shooter. So where's the synergy there? You don't want too many non-shooters on the floor. What I'll say though, is that Scottie Barnes is an excellent passer. He is very good at passing the ball and getting the ball to players who are open. Jakob Poeltl is very easy to pass to. He makes himself available very well on pick and rolls. When Scottie Barnes drives into the paint, his ability to shoot the floater gives him the ability to kind of provide a bit of spacing, I would say. It's not the traditional spacing that you would expect. There's vertical spacing where lob threats, like you've seen, I know Common Malawach, if you've been watching the NCAA tournament, his vertical spacing is incredible. You can't kind of leave him alone because they'll just toss the ball up way over your head and he'll put it in. Jakob Poeltl provides a different type of spacing, the floater spacing, the push shot spacing. This is something that we've seen with Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic has an automatic floater where you cannot leave him alone inside 10 feet from the basket. So what that means is that the big cannot fully commit to helping. They have to be sort of a little bit the hedge between the person penetrating to the rim and Jakob Poeltl. Scottie Barnes, being a good passer, if the big comes over to contest the shot, he will find Jakob Poeltl, who will hit the floater. It's just a very simple play, very easy, very, traditional basketball, but it is a bit of spacing. And if they stay too attached to Jakob Poeltl because they're worried about his floater, which they should be, it's a very good shot, Scottie Barnes can just go all the way to the rim and score. So I think that there's some synergy there. And then on the defensive end, this is a very good synergy, great synergy. So Poeltl is, as I've mentioned, very good at cutting off penetration to the rim. He's a good help defender when you guide players towards him. His weakness is that he isn't a very good shot blocker, and he's not very, vertically athletic. He's not providing that rim defense. Guess who does? Scottie Barnes has emerged as one of the best defenders at his position, and one of the elements that he really brings to the table is that athletic shot blocking ability, where he can get up and just smack shots out of the paint. So he adds that sort of rim deterrence, that, fear from the guards, that if they get into the paint, they're going to get their shot erased by Scottie Barnes. And then when the two of them work together in the rebounding department, they lock down the defensive paint. And also on offense, they're both pretty good offensive rebounders, but let's talk about the defensive glass. Both are good at boxing out. Scottie Barnes boxes out pretty well. Jakob Poeltl really boxes out very well. So a lot of the time, Jakob Poeltl will box the other big out of the way so Scottie Barnes can grab the rebound. Both of them have really good hands. They can just snatch the ball off of the boards. These guys lock down the defensive paint. The other teams are not going to be getting, and have not been getting, lots of offensive rebounds against these two. This is one of the strong suits. This is where they are really synergistic, and they really work well as a tandem on defense and on the boards. And in terms of how he fits with the guards, it's just great. So we've discussed many times on this channel just how guards and bigs work together sort of synergistically and how they can help each other's games. Jakob Poeltl, it's kind of a yin and a yang. He provides the screens, the guards provide, the creation, where they will basically penetrate into the paint, and his ability to, as I've mentioned, make himself available. It's all works very, hand in glove. Those kinds of players, as quickly RJ, and now very shortly for next season, Brandon Ingram. This is a very, very good pairing. And I mean, Brandon Ingram, he mentioned, why did you come to the Raptors? Well, he mentioned by name Jakob Poeltl. He knows that his perimeter scoring ability and ability to use screens is predicated on having a good pick and roll partner. And Jakob Poeltl, as I mentioned, is one of the better pick and roll men in the league, and he's going to help those guys work together. He's going to help the team in general. I think that he is one of the reasons that I am optimistic that the Raptors will be, contending for the playoffs next season once Brandon Ingram is made available, once they're not, trying to tank and, playing all these funky lineups. I think that he's going to be a big recipe for success for the Toronto Raptors. And that kind of dovetails pretty nicely into the next section, which I will be talking about. And that is the game against the Charlotte Hornets. The Toronto Raptors won 108-97, so not a huge margin of victory, but they were able to defeat the Charlotte Hornets. And we'll get into the player evaluations. And no surprise here, Jakob Poeltl was the player we're going to be talking about first, definitely the player of the game. 24 points on 14 shots. He only missed 2 shots the entire night. 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 1 turnover. Dominant performance against a good defensive big. This is not rinky-dink time here. Mark Williams is a good center. He had a good game too. 18 points, 12 rebounds. He didn't miss any shots, so he's a good center. But Jakob Poeltl is just, key to the Toronto Raptors winning games. His push shot, as I've mentioned earlier on, maybe this section will be a little shorter because we've already discussed what he's good at, but it was on full display last night. The Raptors consciously run plays so that Jakob Poeltl can get a floater. The point of the play almost is just get Jakob Poeltl the ball at 10 feet and he pushes the ball into the basket. He had a really nice floater pump fake into drive. That is just a great weapon to have in your post repertoire. And 12 rebounds, that's really big. And it all came in 26 minutes. So a 24-point double-double in 26 minutes. You really cannot ask better than that. And on defense, he was, very solid. Next up, we'll go to Immanuel Quickley. Immanuel Quickley had a really good game, 19 points in 27 minutes, but 19 points on 15 shots. He was 5 of 8 from 3. This is his, plus skill. He is really good at punishing players for going under the screen. He can pull up and shoot the shot, and he did so many times last night. 1 rebound, 9 assists. 9 assists. A lot of them were going to his big man. A lot of them were just easy finds, but there were some, good, advanced reads as well. And 9 assists, 1 steal, only 1 turnover. Really hard to ask for better from your point guard. I mean, Jakob Poeltl, Immanuel Quickley, both played really well. Immanuel Quickley, 19 points, 9 assists, and just banging threes all night long. Loved it. Next up, we'll go to Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes had a really good game, 18 points on 14 shots. He was 2 of 6 from 3, maybe a little shot happy in terms of the 3-point shooting, but he made enough of them that I'm not going to complain too much. He was 4 of 6 from the free throw line, had 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 block, and 2 turnovers, and he was tasked with guarding the best offensive player on the floor for the Charlotte Hornets, and get a load of this. This is why he had a really excellent game. Miles Bridges, a good scoring forward. Not a big fan of his, off the court stuff, but he is a good player for the Charlotte Hornets. He had 11 points on 20 shots. Okay, he was 1 of 9 from 3 with 4 rebounds, 6 assists. Scotty Barnes put the clamps on Miles Bridges, just shut him down almost completely. In the first half, I don't think he even scored a single point, or maybe had free throws or something, but Scotty Barnes just locked him up. Maybe that's where he should be in real life. But in terms of the defense, he is, one of the better defenders at his position. He was a big recipe for the Raptors being able to win this game. Next up, we'll go to Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl had a pretty good game. Efficiency-wise, he had 11 points on 3 of 8 shooting. All of those shots came from the 3-point line. He was 3 of 7 from 3. And I'm not going to say it was an amazing shooting night, because all of these shots that he was taking were wide open. And he missed a couple of them pretty badly, I would say. But, his shot is coming along. We can't expect him to, just be a completely knockdown shooter. And 3 of 7 is fine. He was 2 of 2 from the free throw line with 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 1 turnover, and the defense was good as well. I mean, he's just consistently bringing it on the defensive end. I really like that element of his game. And last and least was Jamison Battle. Jamison Battle has been, up and down, and that's kind of the life of a shooter. A lot of the times, shooters, if that's your number 1 skill, it is an incredibly variable skill. One night you're going to be on fire, the other night you're going to be, going 0 for, and that's what he was last night. He had 2 points on 1 of 7 shooting. He was 0 for 5 from 3 with 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 turnover. This was all not completely negative. I think that Jamison Battle is a little bit better as a defender than I originally had pegged. I think his foot speed is actually, it's not good. I would say slightly under mediocre, which is fine. And then the rebounding has been something that he's been able to pitch in with. So he also had 2 steals last night, and mostly just being in the right place at the right time. But those count. And then off the bench, we will talk about Jamal Shead. Jamal Shead, another great night. A little inefficient from the field, so he had 17 points on 16 shots. He was 1 of 7 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. He had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 0 turnovers, and he got the chain in this game because his defense is just, really, really strong. He is a very capable defender. He chases people around screens. He makes it very difficult for other teams to get past him. He's just a thorn in the side of any player that he is matched up against on the defensive end. And then on the offensive end, he does, I would say more than enough to justify him being on the floor. It is he's a positive on both ends, I would say. Anyway, that was the game. The Toronto Raptors were in a comfortable lead the entire night. The unfortunate part is that the Raptors bench is struggling. The only guy who really had a positive game off of the bench was Jamal Shead. Everybody else was kind of some way, shape, or form negative. And when they were on the court, the Charlotte Hornets were better, which is why this was only an 11-point game. I think that all of the starters, with maybe the exception of Jamison Battle, were great, were excellent. Jakob Poeltl, Scotty Barnes, Immanuel Quickley, that trifecta is just going to win you games against the dregs of the league. They're much better than who the Hornets can muster up. These guys are going to be driving wins next season, and I'm excited to see that because this season, it's kind of a foregone conclusion. They've won 3 games in a row. So the last time, they lost 4 in a row, and then they just won 3 in a row. They've been very up and down. So the next game they play is against the Philadelphia 76ers. I think the Sixers are just like, they're completely uncatchable at this point. They are so bad. This is almost like, unless the Raptors really pull out all of the stops, they are going to beat the 76ers, even though it is in Philadelphia. So that's kind of discouraging. But after that, they have a much more difficult schedule. So they play the 76ers, then they play the Bulls, the Trailblazers, and the Pistons. The Bulls have been very good recently. The Trailblazers are a difficult team to beat. They're very peppy and, put in a lot of effort, and they've already lost to them this season. And then the Pistons are just a legitimately good team this year. So I expect them to lose all of those games. And they're really going to have to, because the rest of the schedule is kind of a cakewalk. So the big 3 games coming up after this next Philadelphia game. So we got to keep an eye on that. Got to keep an eye on the tank standings, and we'll see how the Raptors, fare. In any case, that is the episode. Let me know what you think about Jakob Poeltl. Has he surprised you this season like he has with me? Are you expecting big things from him next season? Is he going to help the Toronto Raptors make the playoffs? Let me know here in the comments, and also on Twitter and Blue Sky, where you can reach me at Raps Report. I love talking to Toronto Raptors fans. You know it, we're the best. And if you haven't already, please just hit the like button, because that helps the channel grow. Also subscribe, hit the bell icon, all that good stuff. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.